cancel culture, what is it? Is it real? And is it good? No doubt you guys have heard about the last couple of days. There's been so much controversy with Carlos Ocelote Rodriguez about posting a roughly 1 second clip of Andrew Tate, implying that they're partying together. So that took internet by storm and internet went up in flames. I have been very baffled personally these last couple of days because I'm trying to reinvestigate what my beliefs are and what I'm thinking about the situation, because I feel so out of place. It feels really weird seeing all the people go crazy. I feel like there's a pretty hefty dissonance between what people think and what these websites portray to us. So I've talked to some people about this, and most of them, pretty much all of them, agree that 1 second clip of filming a contentious person should not eventually cost your entire brand $10 to $15 million, get you removed from the franchising project from Riot Games, who are obviously a very, very included party here. We're going to discuss that as well, causing you ultimately to step down from the organization you've created for 8+ years. So how do we get to this? How can we reconcile a 1 second video, 1 second clip? Well, I think the clip is like 8 seconds in total, but I think it features 1 second of Andrew Tate, which is quite ridiculous. I mean, he is bold, but come on, guys. I don't think that's deserving this amount of losses towards the brand. So as far as I can see it, some people could not understand how did we get to this, so they blamed cancel culture for this, which I think it's reasonable to assume cancel culture had a part in this for sure. First, we're going to check what majority of the people on Twitter think, or the perceived majority, the most popular prevalent opinion, and then we're going to discuss what cancel culture might constitute actually. So Jake Lucky is basically in every possible drama ever, so he obviously has an opinion here, but he has a bit mixed feelings. He was unsure whether Carlos an entire G2 brand should actually get destroyed. A lot of employees should be punished, but we have Space Ghost here kind of missing the point, saying about how he lost G2 10+ million with the Valorant deal, which is in my opinion consequence of the cancel culture. And I think most people miss the point here. We even see Veteran here, who is usually a smart guy with a lot of liberal and forward-thinking beliefs, and now we're seeing there isn't a single term in living memory that caused more brain rot than cancel culture. The term's vagueness definitely causes a lot of issues on both sides, and we're going to discuss that. All critical thinking just gets thrown out the window as people demand CEOs and the like receive immunity from responsibility. Think for yourself, you goddamn sheep. There's no doubt there will be very, very shitty human beings trying to justify their beliefs and saying, oh man, it's the cancel culture. They're out to get me. Nobody wants to hang out with me. They'll be saying that they're speaking truth to power and that they're being silenced and removed from the platforms and shunned from spaces. This is one reason why I'm really uneasy about silencing people, but as to the side, because I only believe it's going to give them credence to their position and reinforce their belief and solidify them more and push them a bit underground. I seriously don't think it's going to change anything, and bit by bit we're going to create a distance between what actual average people on the street think with what the elitist people in the social networks and circles might believe. So that dissonance is definitely not healthy. From then on, those people will forever believe that every sort of establishment government is out to get them, everyone is against them, they, the invisible enemy, and it will be pretty much impossible for them to rationally think points through. Now, if that is obviously true, and we do see people like that, we can conversely think of the opposite end scenario where people are going to use this as a weapon to silence any sort of dissenting opinions. They will regard all opinions that are not equal to theirs as ridiculous, equate them all to one, and try to silence them all, while claiming it's just the consequences of your behavior. Now, I regard it as well as a very, very dangerous thing. Here are probably some examples of that. Retired comedian speaks about cancel culture. You couldn't do my act today. People are just too woke, says Bongo the segregation clown. You know, it's a bit of a push to the extreme. And most people saying that are going to talk about the cancel culture in such a way. Here we have, again, that's not cancel culture. That's investors being upset over a multi-million dollar unforced error, which is, nobody is disputing this. It is the easiest thing in the world to justify a company's position. Company loses money, replace the CEO. That is literally the easiest thing to justify. And I don't think many people claiming cancel culture are talking about this. What I'm saying is when I mention cancel culture, would be something the likes of people responding in a very irrational manner, pushing the companies to this point where they have to believe that this is the only way to go. Now, I also agreed with this. I even tweeted about this. Probably a good choice, as you're always find a bit of a loose cannon personnel so now can be fully yourself. This is probably the best for Ocelote as well, because he's not meant really for this like highly scrutinized PR position. He's just not that type of personality. He's not a personality that's gonna kind of sneak in and try to just be for everything that the majority of the people will be. He has his own positions, and I truly commend him for that. But that will mean that he's very, very prone to these attacks. That being said, this is the best choice for both of them. Like in this given scenario, G2, best choice. With him, they couldn't continue. But without him, they're going to have a very, very difficult time continuing anyway. But still, I think it's the best way to go forward. We're going to check a couple of these. Cancel culture isn't real at all, which is a very interesting claim, and a lot of people are there. The absolute disconnect with the news on grandstanding against cancel culture instead of sexual abuse, human trafficking is actually crazy. I actually looked this up. I couldn't find any confirmation. And I'm kind of weary about how people use these very, very strong terms. This is a very, very big, powerful condemnation, which should really require a load of evidence behind it. Okay, so now we get to the crux of the point. What is cancel culture, and why do so many people claim that it doesn't exist? And does it really exist? Like, how do you define it? What is happening here? Destroys an entire wing of esports company and gets fired for it. Cancel culture is out of control. So my claim here is that the marketing component is definitely a big part. Like, it's a huge part, but it would be a delusional claim to say cancel culture has nothing to do with it. And now we have, again, response to the very, very final act. Carlos lost his company and their investors are a lot of money. It's a valid reason to kick a CEO out of his position. Agreed. At least from a financial perspective, definitely. After all, esports organizations are a marketing product. Definitely. That is not the point about the cancel culture at all. Cancel culture has nothing to do with it because he's not even canceled. He's fired from one job. He has a full brand. He can do whatever with it. Not sure about that one. He's still on social media. Okay. He'll be fine. He just fucked up one position. I treated you with kids gloves before, but I don't know about this. This is basic. It's not really basic. It's definitely a deeper point about cancel culture, and we still don't fully comprehend it. And I'll try to unpack that a bit. I treat you with kids gloves. This is a bit of a patronizing statement from veteran, which is probably not the best way to go about dialogue, because I don't think it's going to be very productive, but nevertheless, here I'm trying to offer an olive branch about this agreement because I do believe veteran is capable of comprehending this issue, and he will eventually agree with this. This agreement is coming from the meaning of the term cancel culture, as it's pretty loaded. I usually regard the tendency of social space to snowball every difficult issue ultimately into a binary where the losing group gets ostracized, not quite literally canceling people, whatever that would mean. This is a rather complex topic. This is a very, very horrible topic to discuss via Twitter and like one or two tweets. So it's just not a very, very smart thing to do. So I'm kind of forced to make this video just to talk about this because I feel like I'm being lost here. I'm being lost because majority opinion is just so weird right now. It's so skewed that it would appear that many people are actually justifying this whole endeavor, and they think 1 second mistake, if you can call it as such, should lead to this, which I think is a bit ridiculous. Justifying the view of a company from monetary perspective is the easiest thing to do, but that is not my point. I don't think we were able to get the point across, and I don't know if I'm eloquent enough to actually unpack this properly. But yeah, I truly hope people can understand the point here. We have to, as veterans said, not be sheep and actually understand points like individually, one from another. The fact that huge losses lead to a CEO being replaced, perfectly understandable. The fact that 1 second clip of a bald man leads to enough outrage to put internet into flames and force this decision from Riot is pretty weird. That is the part that I'm trying to call out here. Now, I think very, very few people might define cancel culture as actually being canceled or banned off of all platforms. I think there are many previous steps that actually enable cancel culture that set it up so you can actually remove people and check them out of social platforms. I think it's a bit weird to actually claim that cancel culture only matters when people are canceled. If they're absolutely removed from every single platform, if they get like Alex Jones or whoever got canceled. That's one example that I have in mind. Only they would get qualified as canceled, nobody else. So I went and looked this up, and I kind of thought about this, and I tried to figure out exactly what cancel culture would be. So we checked our trusted source, i.e. Wikipedia. Cancel culture or call-out culture is a phrase contemporary in the late 2010s and early 2020s used to refer to a form of ostracism in which someone is thrust out of social or professional circles, whether it be online, social media, or in person. Those types of ostracism are said to have been canceled. Expressed cancel culture has mostly negative connotations and is used in debates on free speech censorship. The notion of cancel culture is a variant on the term call-out culture. It is often said to take the form of boycotting or shunning an individual, often a celebrity who is deemed to have acted or spoken in an acceptable manner. I think that would perfectly apply here, and I think most people define cancel culture this way, not exactly purely canceling people. or removing them from existence, vanishing them to the shadow realm or something. Now, how do we get to the cancel culture? This is a very, very difficult topic, and I'm probably not smart enough to unpack it, especially not like this on the fly. But I do think I can identify some of the pieces that push towards social networks are kind of devised to push in that direction. They have a tendency to skew in the cancel culture way. And just one easy example would be how when one opinion is more prevalent than the other, it's going to ultimately push the decision to binary, because more people are going to cluster around the correct, technically perceived opinion, so the majority would overtake eventually, ultimately, down the road, you're going to get to only one right option. And that is no matter how complex the topic is, which means Twitter is absolutely not designed to having these conversations. It definitely trivializes the things. You either agree with the presented popular opinion, the correct one, or you don't. I do believe that in itself is a terrible way to organize and create a layout for global communication. Now, that is especially heightened when you add the ability of removing certain communicators. Now, you can see this playing out in the long run. If you have a chance, if you just add a chance of removing players from this game, check them out, eventually, out of the guys remaining, you're gonna get the correct opinion. Just following this pattern, as far as I can tell, this can only go one way. This would constitute as an extreme rule of majority of people who are checked in. Some people claim that cancel culture doesn't exist, as we saw, and I do believe it all comes down to semantics at the end of the day, because most of them would agree with this layout that we have here. Maybe cancel culture is not the best term, maybe it's a bit loaded here, so people misunderstand it in different ways, but we definitely need a term for this very phenomenon. There's something more about these platforms that kind of pushes that type of interaction. People like more radical claims. People don't really like moderate fence-sitting behavior. They don't like centrism, and they will usually flock to one or the other side and try to create these teams and defend, and the bigger side usually wins. This will lead to a snowball effect. Companies will always follow the snowball effect, especially if they advertise in this modern way on social networks, while in the real world they're gonna kind of change their marketing perspectives and their ways of marketing and appealing to different markets, obviously. Is that hypocritical? Kinda, but they're just chasing profits, and yeah, we can all understand that. What we can't understand here is how most progressive people on these websites, on these platforms with liberal leanings, how can they be pro-censorship in that case? This obviously goes beyond this little Ocelote drama. It goes to everything and a global phenomenon of cancel culture. A couple of other things that I thought could accelerate this potentially while I was taking a shower earlier and thinking about this is how people have done studies, and when you think about a response, it actually takes longer. Your emotional responses are much, much faster, which engage your reptilian brain. To engage your prefrontal cortex requires a bit of a pause and thinking and realigning, and then you act. Just that very fact could probably skew the outcome of what is perceived as the majority opinion on these websites, because let's say one group A with a reptilian brain or emotional response, would just click that like slightly faster, and people would be hesitant to actually give their opinions on something if they're afraid that the majority is against them. So that could probably drive to some extent this issue. Also, I'm not sure how much righteousness there is in these sort of crusades, because a lot of people have a lot to gain but nothing to lose doing these sort of witch hunts. As long as you're on the winning side, the likes are abundant, people are sharing your opinion, the retweets, the follows, and you kind of get into this bubble. I hope I've laid these claims in a competent manner. English is not my native language. I wish I was a bit more eloquent, and I didn't do too much research on this, but I do believe all of these factors that I've laid out play into the form of cancel culture. So as far as I'm concerned, it does exist. Cancel culture may eventually lead other people who don't share the majority perceived opinion to stay silent, or when they try, they get attacked. We're going to take an example here from Luca Perks, who used to play for Ocelote's team, G2, and we're going to see here, no matter what, one hiccup, this is a fucking sad day for esport, which is absolutely, like, objectively correct statement, either way on the side. Stupid as fucking unfair. So he's getting a lot of flack here for saying the word unfair, and he's kind of standing his ground here, which is very funny to see on these websites. But yeah, you could probably even justify the term unfair. You could probably even justify that, because the peers in this jury actually have nothing to lose but a lot to gain, because they're trying to call people out. And the judge is actually Riot Games, which are really, really heavily implicit, and they've done a lot to create a misogynistic culture, especially within their company. And they recently settled a lawsuit about 100 million. So they're probably doing this as a PR stunt to try to prove that they are in the right and they're trying to fight for these values, especially for the Valorant, the new franchising. Okay, so let's put this in the courtroom perspective to actually see how ridiculous this is. You have a guy who's being accused of filming a robber for 8 seconds, 1 second involving him, while the judge is a known kleptomaniac. The circumstance is such that it actually had to go down this way because Twitter is what Twitter is. People are going to be ridiculous and they have a lot to gain. They will push Riot Games to only one conclusion. Riot Games has to defranchise them, to backpedal, and to actually wash away the stains from their company. It's just a very, very unfortunate timing of the events that kind of pushed it into only one solution. And they had to do that, and now the G2 is kind of forced, because it's the best option, for Carlos to leave, because he cost them 10 to 15 million roughly. So where I believe, and where the criticism from me lies, is I think we can do a lot more as being conscious observers of these things and try to be a bit slower in our responses, a bit more methodical, think them through, do not go into one way or another just for the sake of defending that position, and try to think about these things individually. If we do not pursue everything so radically and try to snowball every single opinion and chase it down, which is a bit of a ridiculous thing, we're probably always going to do that, we could do a lot better with that. And we're going to have a lot more consistency. One set of events started this. You could blame Carlos for posting the video, which would break down the entire causality chain, and this would have never happened. But he is who he is. He's going to do what he wants to do, and nobody's going to police his opinions or friends, which is quite a decent statement there. And then you have Twitter, who's going to always blow everything out of proportion into flames. And then you're going to have companies who could maybe overreact sometimes, especially in these cases where they're accused of something themselves, so they're definitely going to overreact in this case. Maybe if Riot was in good standing, they could probably defend this and just say, it's fine, we trust these people, there's nothing happening here with Ocelote. The implication in itself is pretty weird. He hung out with a known misogynist, which I don't think by itself should be condemning. We do have freedom of association. I feel like people are jumping the gun on the accusation just based on one clip. We have nowhere near enough information to make that judgment call, but usually hasty people will be hasty, and we're gonna get to this position. I feel like it wasn't nearly enough data to actually make really, really conclusive proof here or evidence of anything. It would be another different story. This could play into the personality if we have known Ocelote's past, that he had a lot of misogynistic outbursts, he had a lot of bad relationships, people like saying stuff against him, but we're on the fence, we're not sure, because we don't know if we can validate those claims. So now this comes out and you can say, okay, this plays into the role kind of well. It's quite convenient. He's hanging out with this guy while he has a lot of allegations on him. So in that case, you could actually use this as a judge of character. But without a previously smoking gun, you really can't use this as any sort of meaningful information, at least in my opinion. I don't think it says anything about Carlos's character. So not to dwell too much on this is just one of those things I wanted to claim as a mediator in between positions to try and prevent hastily decision making on the part of the populace. The ship has sailed, people will eventually miss Ocelote, and they will probably regret this, the way it went down. Esport did take a big hit. Precedent by itself of this is not a very good one for social networks. I could probably guarantee you that 95% of people condemning Ocelote have hung out with really, really bad and rotten people, but that doesn't equate them. That doesn't make their beliefs one-to-one match. And I think it's rather patronizing that we have to remove that, or else people are gonna think Carlos equals Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate is good, Carlos is good, all of it is good. That's my world belief now. That's how I see the world. I think it's frankly ridiculous and quite patronizing. I do believe in people more than that. I think people can think these things through one at a time and actually make their own decisions. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments, any sort of interesting insight, feedback, whatever. We can even talk about it on stream. So hey, thank you guys for watching. See you on the next one.